Adventure and Pipeman on W4CY Radio.
Wake up, America! It's time for the Adventures of Pipeman on W4CY.com, West Palm Beach's #1 internet radio station. Here's your host, the Pipeman.
This is the Pipeman here on the Adventures of Pipeman W4CY Radio, and I'm here with our next guest. Again, we're going over the pond because I'm supposed to be at Bloodstock this weekend, having a blast. And instead, I'm going to be having a blast at my daughter's wedding. I don't know, maybe not. My ex-wife will be there, so maybe there'll be more drama than there would be at Bloodstock, but we'll see. But I'm really bummed because, I was at Grass Pop recently, and I was hanging out with my friend from the UK, Wayne, and we were talking about, he has this thing called Hellfest at Home, and then we were talking about me being involved in it next year, and then we were going to do our own version in Florida together here. But he said to me, hey, one of the bands that played at Hellfest at Home, you know, they're going to be playing Bloodstock, you should talk to them. I'm like, sure. And then after talking to my next guest, I found out there was a lot of confusion with multiple people wanted us to get together. So here we are. And let's welcome to the show, Ross from Reverent Son. How are you?
Hello, everybody from across the pond or wherever you are.
So,
how's it going?
So yeah, it was pretty funny. You were just telling me the story about how you got 2 requests for me to interview you, but you didn't know they were both me. And It blew your mind when you found out, you know, the 6 degrees of separation there.
Yeah, so I'll explain. When we do Bloodstock, you can get people who do stuff for you, like get you interviews and stuff like that. And we've done radio interviews, and we've got some interviews booked after we play. And basically, I got round to the fact someone said, "Oh, look, you know, speak to this guy. He's in the States." I'm thinking that's pretty cool, right? Like, you know, we're just like a little UK band. So at the same time, a friend of ours called Wayne, who we'd played his garden and stuff like that, had said, "Look, dude, I've got you this interview, right?" I'm like, okay. And he's like, "It's from the States." I'm like, "Oh, this is wicked," right? Anyway, so I'm like, "Okay, I'll pocket that one and I'll sort them out." I had like a hernia surgery 3 weeks ago.
Oh,
so I was like, "Oh, while I'm recovering, I'll sort these people out." And I'm like, I'm putting the link in, you know, it comes up in the top of the screen, and I'm putting the other one in, going, okay, well, I better, and I'm going, these look the same. So I'm like, obviously, I'm clicking on the same link from one. So I delete them all, put them back in. I'm like, this is coming up that it's the same guy. Right. And so by some very strange and very small percentage, I don't know, there's probably people watching this would be able to explain, a guy I know who lives 7 minutes drive from me is now dating an American who apparently is a friend, a personal friend, not an internet friend, someone that you work with and has either lived locally or whatever, and is now dating that person. And then and I have now met that person, and so I had 2 links for you from 2 separate, non-related things.
It's wild how the universe works.
I wouldn't even know what the actual realistic. I hope maybe someone can reply and say, "Oh, by the way, statistically, this is the chances of that happening."
I think the chances of that happening are less likely than winning the lottery.
Yeah, but now I'm not going to win the lottery because you're very. Actually, you should be very lucky. You won my lottery. That's it.
Right?
That's everyone gets luck, and this was it. This was the. I mean, I get it. Like, obviously, like metal music, alternative music works in certain circles. So
yeah,
there is a smaller chance. I understand that, but still, and he didn't know anything about the other interview. He would know nothing about that.
No, he wouldn't.
So two people have come to you and said, out of probably how many people do these sort of interviews?
And now I'm like, well, now I got to do this interview. There's two people asking me to do it.
I better do it now.
And there's something else I want to bring up that's pretty cool. Okay. So I'm from New Jersey. Mm-hmm. And there was this family in New Jersey that was on the Mastodon River, which is a river near where I lived. Mm-hmm. And they got attacked by something in the river. And literally it was bad. Now, there's this movie about that story. Okay. Now, the movie talks about this great white shark. And actually, in reality, you might not even know this, is a bull shark.
I know about bull sharks and all that.
Yeah, and the problem with bull sharks is they go anywhere. It doesn't freshwater, brackish water,
I've
salt
heard
water.
about the Florida problem. They get in and then they eat the crocs. Is that right?
Yeah, well, and see, that's the problem in Jersey too. Is they were in the river, and this family was in a river. Never are you going to expect to get attacked by a shark, and they got attacked by a shark, and that's where the concept of the movie Jaws came from. Mm-hmm. That most people think it's a great white in Long Island. No, that's just the stage of the movie. It is based on a real story.
They caught a great white, and it had human remains in. I've watched the whole program, but they reckon that those human remains were probably someone that had died and then it had just eaten them.
Yeah.
Because there is a guy, he beat it to death with like an oar. Like, but that great white, I mean, at the end of the day, even a great white the size is like me is still going to do a lot of damage. But yeah, it was probably a bull shark, to be fair. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. And bull sharks, man, I've watched during Shark Week. Because, okay, here's where it's interesting to me. Again, more of the 6 degrees of separation. I am looking at the notes, when I was getting ready to talk to you and about your stage performance for the lead track Circled by Sharks.
That's the one, yeah.
And it's based on the Jaws movie.
Yeah.
And I am a surfer, so I immediately saw that.
Yeah.
And, of course, I know the Jaws story.
Yeah.
And then I see your live performance, which you're going to do at Bloodstock.
Yeah.
And it's so funny and cool that you throw inflatable sharks into the crowd. I'm now even more bummed I won't be at Bloodstock because I want one of those.
Maybe I'll mail you one.
It was so funny to lead to another story at Grass Pop. I was hanging out with these two girls in the Machine Head pit. And during Machine Head, they were throwing out these big inflatable balls. And so one of the girls, of course, you know how we are as guys. Like a hot girl's going to ask us to do something, and we'll stop everything and do it. So
and we've been drinking.
They wanted one of those. Mm. They wanted one of those, and I went and got one, and like getting the air out of it, like took the whole set.
Yeah,
there's so much air getting it out. It's like you had to lie. I wish we had a video of this because there were a bunch of us in the middle of the Machine Head pit lying on these balls trying to deflate them as people are moshing around us.
Yeah, I bet, yeah. but they're worth something, right?
Yeah, that's why.
Because someone will go on eBay and say, I've got this, right?
So I want the shark from the Reverent Sun show.
I can send you one. They're not that great. We get them on Amazon.
I could use it. Okay, so I'll be at another festival in a couple weeks. I can bring it to a festival and put it on the interview table.
Oh no, I'll send you one. Give me your address. I'll try and send you one. Yeah, they're just like cheap. Do you know what? You say that though. We've got to look at trying to go to a wholesaler, which so you can get them on the cheap, because we're spending like £3-4 pounds a shark, right? And you got to remember, like, although weirdly people give them back to us, like this is a one-way journey.
That is weird that people give it back to you.
Yeah, like we're just like no. We have got a big shark, but I think we called it Lydia, right? I think this is her last show, so we're going to take her. She's like a giant shark. Most of them are like that. I think this is going to be her last show. I mean, she's done 2 years with us, this big shark, so we're going to sign it, put our stickers on it, and then we're going to throw it out and be like, because they only take, they're not designed for mosh pits, right?
No.
So it's weird. People throw them back, and then we're like, I have to go home with these.
I know, right?
I've spent like 40, 50 quid on sharks, and that's a loss, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you do it because it's part of the show. Not
100%. Americans would not give it back. Just saying right now.
I don't want it back. This British people give it back.
It'd be like, that's mine now. You're not getting it back.
The British people are like, I'm going to keep. Do you want this back? I'm like, yeah, I guess. But now I've got to deflate it.
At first at Grass Pop, I was laughing because I saw these dudes. They're not fighting in the mosh pit, but they're fighting over these stupid inflatable things.
Yeah.
And then I'm laughing. I'm like, that's really ridiculous. And then when I went to get the one for that girl, and then I finally got sick of trying to get the air out of it. So I brought it back to Wayne and Lori. Okay. So all roads lead back to Wayne. Okay. And I brought it back to them, and as I'm walking through the pits, I'm having like dudes come and try to like rip it out of my hand. Like, it's a stupid inflatable. Like, you're looking to like beat me up over a stupid inflatable, but we can go into the mosh pit and not want to beat each other up.
I don't know if you watched the Ghost movie that came out, right? Ghost did a little cinema movie.
I don't think I saw it yet.
Right. So we, for some reason, didn't get the popcorn can and the cups and everything, right? For whatever in our local area. Obviously, they would have been like, I don't know, 25 quid. You'd get your cup, your popcorn. Or, as we know, ghosts are very like Kiss. So the people that are into them are into the collecting. Oh, yeah. I've actually got, I probably could send you one. I've got like an original, I've got about 10 of them. Original Trooper cups, the big black cups. When Iron Miden first brought out Trooper beer.
Oh.
They did limited that you could only.
I would rather have that than Ghost.
Right. But what it becomes is they become collectible. And in the last 10 years, 15 years since I've done festivals as a kid, like playing music and everything, I've watched how what happens is that people have honed in on that. What you and I would have just gone, there's a cup, and I gave them away. I got like you got one with every beer, and I was obviously drinking like 15, 16 beers at the time, like stumpies. People were just throwing them away. But that's the point, because people were throwing them away. They become, and you think anything that's collectible is usually because people threw it away, like McDonald's toys. People got rid of them, and now people are on eBay saying, I've got this 1980s 2 Transformers toy for under 3-year-olds, and people pay 500 quid. That's a true story. I have a guy who's got one of the biggest Transformer collections. I work with him, and weirdly enough, while Bloodstock's going on in Birmingham, just next door, is the Transformer convention, and he told me that story, and I said, whether he paid 500 quid, it could have been 200 quid, because it was a limited edition, under 3 years old, Transformer. There would have been what for the movie? I don't know when the movie came out. I don't remember it. I wasn't probably even born. But those things become collectible because people threw them away. It's like the Toy Story toys that came out of McDonald's. If you are then a collector of Toy Story, they're probably what you're looking for. And it's the same thing. It's the same thing as the inflatable, especially if they've got the logo of the band on, right? Right?
Yeah, so this didn't have it didn't have the logo of the band. That's why I'm like, who cares? It's like just an inflatable. It's not like a machine head inflatable.
It's worth it. Doesn't matter, because someone out there will say, yeah, but that would have been on eBay the next day.
To your point, okay, you ready for this? To your point, in the United States, most of the festivals were sponsored by Monster Energy drink.
Oh, nice.
And what you would have back in press and artist area is the Monster Tour water. And it's just water. That's all it is. They don't sell it out there in the festival. And I had, who was it? I think it was a daughter of mine. It's like, oh no, it was the person that runs my Louisiana studio. She was like, you need to get me some tour water. And I'm like, oh, it's just water in a can. No, they're collector's items. They're so hard to find. And people are selling them on eBay for like $500, an empty can of tour water. Like it's just a water in a Monster Energy can. And it's like, it's unbelievable. The underground like thing with this tour water, but it's true. You can't get it unless you're.
A lot. I think Marvel did a lot of that for everybody, you know, and then you had the Funkos come out, you know, and then, you know, you got Magic the Gathering, the card game, and they bring out, it's all about bring out 50 of something, and then bring out 3 things that are limited.
Yes.
And bear in mind, those, I work in like a war games industry, like you control what's limited, right? So they already control that. So they can sell 100,000 of this thing, but they know that there's probably only 10 of this thing. And so that makes everything else then, well, people will want to collect these only 10. It's a whole thing, right? They control it and they know it, right?
Oh yeah.
And that's
brilliant.
That's a big part of like how when like, you know, in the last 15 years I've seen the shift, and it's the same like tour stuff as well. It's always been that way, but you know, like
it's just like it amazes me that Star Wars paraphernalia now is more popular than when I was a kid, and I went to the original Star Wars movie in the movie theater when it first came out. Yeah. And
those toys you had that you just threw in the sandbox at the time. Now you look even like damaged ones or like ones that have been played with, you know. No, I get
stuff that I got rid of. I wouldn't even be doing this interview right now. I'd be retired. I used to have the KISS trading cards.
I bet they'd be worth a lot now.
Could you imagine?
I like KISS, by the way. So yeah.
Could you imagine? You know, that's the first album I ever owned in my life that I didn't steal from my brother that I actually owned.
It's alive?
No. Ready? I lived in Jersey and I went with my brother's girlfriend to the Jersey Shore to the boardwalk. Okay. We have a place called Seaside Heights, a few of them, where when you go to the beach, there's a boardwalk and it's like a carnival at the beach. So there was this carny game where you could win a record album. And I didn't have any albums. The only music I knew from was I used to rifle through my brother that was 11 years older, his record collection. So I actually got into music that kids my age weren't into, you know, and it's funny. I just interviewed John Lodge from the Moody Blues. And that first thing I said to him, and he just had a show that I went to. First thing I said to him is, the reason I know you guys is because I stole my brother's album when I was a little kid and listened to you guys. He goes, yeah, our whole band is based on that. Like, thank God they all had older brothers because all our fans heard our music from their older brother.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
You know? And so I'm looking, and there's this I won the Carney game, and so I had my pick of any album up there. And I'm big into album art, okay? Because it's the generation I grew up in. Like, you bought an album based on what it looked like, because you had no idea what it sounded like. You couldn't hear the music first unless you heard a song on the radio.
Yeah.
And most of the music I listened to, you wouldn't hear on the radio like today. You know, like Slayer didn't play on the radio. Metallica didn't play on the radio. If they played on the radio, they were posers and we didn't want to listen to them anymore.
Yeah.
You know? So I saw this album up there. I'm like, oh my God, those dudes look so cool. I must have been like, I don't know, in first grade. And it was the original KISS album.
Wow.
Like
Strutter and Deuce on that album.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
when Ace Frehley was really also like the first 3 albums, Ace was really on it, you know?
Oh, yeah. We considered him one of the best guitarists ever at that point in time.
Yeah.
And Peter Criss, I started playing drums because of Peter Criss.
Yeah. Look, for your generation, Kiss were.
And I was from that area.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
they
yeah.
were a New York band. They were a New York band.
Yeah.
So, like, that was a huge thing when I was a kid. And I was a Kiss fanatic. And I believe that's what led me to being a total freaking metalhead. Is that our generation, there was a progression because you didn't have bands like yours. You didn't even have, like, I remember being a preteen, almost teen, and Iron Maiden was considered like the heaviest, fastest thing there was.
Yeah.
So imagine that. You know, it's like me and my bros today, we'll go ride in a car, crank some old school music, and my bro will be like, man, I could have sworn that was faster when we were younger.
Yeah.
You know, but there were levels. So I went from like, I was a Kiss fanatic. I became a Beatles fanatic.
Mm-hmm.
I was a Zeppelin fanatic.
Mm-hmm.
And then Sabbath fanatic. And then
Black Sabbath on the hand. Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah,
and then I found Slayer.
Yeah.
And that was all over.
Man, I got stories about, like Black Sabbath to me is, I joke with people and I say, look, you know, I've seen Black Sabbath 4 times. And I'm like, you know, that has affected me. I know how people talk about, like, you know, they have a personal relationship with like religion. I'm like, I have a personal relationship with Black Sabbath. Right? And two very, not to bore everyone, there are 2 very pivotal moments in my life. When I was 16, for people out there, by the way, early 2000s, like 2000 to 2006, was the last time that you had Kerrang and MTV and Scars. Yeah. Last of the generation, you had Darkness just came out. You had Slash, just the last breath of the music industry. Anyway, won't bore you all about that. And a couple of things, and what happened is in 2004, I might have been 14 or 15. Started growing my hair. I grew up in a household of folk rock and like Status Quo and Queen, right? So we had rock. Everything we listened to was rock and was guitars, but not heavy. You had the Osbournes on TV. I didn't know Ozzy Osbourne and Black Sabbath were the same thing. I know this sounds silly for kids now, but the internet didn't have Wikipedia.
Right.
And, you know, I started, my dad got me like an electric guitar when I was 16, and I played a bit of acoustic for a year before in like his old guitar, which I've got upstairs. And I learned everything in guitar magazines, which is usually when I quote quotes, it's from these like Guitar World magazines from 20 years ago or 15 years ago. So 2 things happened. You had the 10-year anniversary of grunge music come out. And it was huge. Like all of like Alice in Chains, Soundgarden, obviously Nirvana, all had these big DVD box sets and stuff like all remastered, and they played it everywhere. And I got into that. All of a sudden, the hair grows. My hair was actually a lot longer recently, but it was getting so scraggly. I had to trim it. By the way, my hair's usually down here, but it was getting really horrible.
I know that feeling. I've been there.
Yeah, this is the first haircut I had in 6, maybe 10 years. So apologies for the short hair, but it's grown back. Anyway, and my beard was really big as well. But I thought I haven't sorted the teeth yet, but typical Britishman. Anyway, so listen to grunge. I'm sort of picking up guitar, and you learn like dive, and it's like, oh, it's really fun and it's really cool to not learn guitar. A couple of things happen. I go over my mate's house, right? And this is back when you used to like knock on their, you didn't even like ring. I didn't have a mobile. You would just turn up like at school or college. You would say, I'll be over at Friday. And then you just turn up, right? Mum's like, he's upstairs. I walk upstairs. And as I'm walking up, I'm hearing it. I get to the top, and his uncle had given him a vinyl player and all the first 6 Sabbath albums.
Nice.
And, you know, in Sabbath we trust. And I stood in the doorway, and I must have stood there for like, 6, 7, however long Bloody Sabbath is. I'd heard Paranoid, you know, because obviously you hear like all these scuzzes showing you like, you know, One from Metallica. So you know these bands. And I started knowing that I wanted to get into thrash. I just didn't know it yet. And then, you know, I go over his, we get like, I mean, this is back when like 4 beers and 2 beers were shared was enough for you to drink, right? So we sit there all night watching all the, was it Assault on Precinct 13, all the John Carpenter stuff. I've actually got, where is he? I got Kurt Russell from The Thing.
Wow.
As well. So we did all of that, and we watched like Children of the Corn, and he had all the old, like early 80s. He was very early 80s, but we just sat there and listened to vinyl when I was 16, 17. So that's the first like movement in my life. I'm like, okay, Black Sabbath. And then I learned that he's like, oh, by the way, like, you know, Black Sabbath and Ozzy Osbourne are the same thing. And, you know, on Kerrang, you couldn't not hear Crazy Train. Then you go out and you buy like the tribute album with Randy Rhoads on. So
I saw Randy Rhoads live, by the way.
You saw Randy Rhoads?
Yeah, live.
Can you hear me?
New Year's Eve.
Yeah, they are.
New Year's Eve. I saw Randy Rhoads live.
Wow. That'd have blown my mind. So then you're like hearing, obviously, you know, I'm used to hearing the Sabbath, you know, and then you hear the Randy Rhoads version. And I was like, oh, right. Bear in mind, I'm still listening to grunge music because of this 10-year anniversary thing. And anyone my age would probably get it. But I started gravitating more to Soundgarden and especially Alice in Chains. I was like, they've got these solos. And I'm learning guitar. I'm 16. I've got my first... I'm learning that there's this. So I'll tell you a very pivotal moment in my life, not to bore everyone. I started realizing that I wanted faster music, and hearing Paranoid by Randy Rhoads sped up was like, oh, okay. I'm loving Paranoid, but I prefer the Randy Rhoads version. And then he's doing all this crazy stuff. And I'm like, okay. So I buy a Guitar World. There's a very, very good story. I buy a Guitar World magazine. The first one I ever bought was a double one. Some people on here will remember it. And it had Randy Rhoads on, which is probably where I got the Randy Rhoads thing from. And then about 3 or 4 episodes later, magazines later, months, I got a magazine and it had, you know, the CD that comes with it. And the CD is the people from the magazine playing it. So it's not the band. And there's no singing. And and they do like 4 bands. And one of the songs is Hangar 18 by Megadeth. Now, I'd only heard of the Megadeth. I knew who Slayer and Metallica were. Didn't know who Anthrax were. Megadeth had come up in conversation, but I knew nothing about them. And there's this tiny little picture, and it's Dave Mustaine. He's got a Harley. I literally can see this picture in my head. He's got a Harley Davidson or bike. Again, there's probably someone watching this will be like, oh, I know that magazine anyway. And it's all tabbed out for you to learn. And I'm like, well, okay. So I put the CD on, and, you know, as we know, Hangar 18 is just like, and then it does these 2 little solos. There's no singing, and it's obviously the guys from the guitar magazine that have caught it, and it ends. So I played this CD till it didn't work. And then I remember my parents were like, here's £10. You can go to your Southend-on-Sea, which is, we've got the longest pleasure pier in the UK or whatever. Burns down every 15 years. You can look into it. Anyway, I run in the store and I say, and I'm running around. I bump into one of the employees, HMV, and he goes, whoa, dude, you all right? And I go, I need Megadeth. And I've got this £10 note. And I'm like, Megadeth. And he says, oh, you want the metal section? He takes me over there and he says, oh, there's a 2 for £10 special. So I write for it. And I find, and the only reason I knew Hangar 18, it was a tiny picture, and it had the and then I'm like, got the CD, and you see Rick, Vic Rattlehead, sorry, and he's got like the Alien, and I'm like, wow. And then I'm like, oh, I better pick up another. And they didn't have many, and then it had a So Far So Good So What, where he's like patrolling the moon with all the, grenades and stuff. I go home. I have one of them old silver CD. Oh, God, we're talking about 20 years ago now. The CDs with the 2 speakers, the little lift. Everyone had one with the radio on the back that your mum had. I walk into the kitchen. My mum's like trying to cook. I'm like, right, out. I put the CD in. I think Hangar 18 is the second song on the album, and it plays. And obviously, he doesn't really start singing for about a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I hear his voice. I've never heard David Stokes. I'm like, okay, bit weird. And he's going like, welcome to, and I'm like, oh, it's the Aliens. Like, this is even better. You know, I kind of got that from the Hangar 18 thing, but, you know, it does the two little Marty Friedman solos.
Yeah.
And then, as we know, there's then another 5 minutes of craziness. And I stood in silence, right? And I'd never heard, you got to remember, like, I had that grunge music, like Nirvana, maybe a solo from Alice in Chains or maybe a bit of Randy Rhoads, but I'd never heard someone use like the Middle Eastern solos, the harmonic minor for most of us that play guitar and stuff. And I realized at that phase, it was like, at that point in my life, it could have been a phase, yeah, of, you know, you get in a rock and then you don't. And I went, I don't know what this is. And I'm pointing at the you know, to make the music go back on. Must have played that song 50 times before I heard Holy Wars. And then the rest of the album, once you get Lucretia and stuff. So I'm like, what is this? It's like finding fire for the first time.
Right.
I've always wanted to tell this story to people. And I realized from that day on, I'm going to grow my hair, play guitar more. And I went and got lessons. And I'm not a very good guitar player, by the way. So please do not think that. And it completely changed my life.
I love hearing
Megadeth
that.
and Black Sabbath changed my life.
So I'm going to blow your mind now with three things. One is Blizzard of Oz. I had it on 8-track tape.
That was amazing.
Okay, wait for it. Mr. Crowley cuts off between the second and third track. And if you ever listened to 8 tracks, basically they would fade out at a track and fade back in.
Try and make it fit. Yeah.
And it was never like the song never ended at the track. Okay?
Yeah.
It basically always, it was in the middle of a track. A track would happen in the middle of a song.
Yeah.
And then you used to have to take a matchbook, you know, when they used to give out matchbooks at like 7-Eleven and stuff, and put it underneath the 8-track to get it to play at the right speed. Because what would happen is if you just left it alone, a lot of times it would
Speed
like
up.
play. No, it would be slow.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it would like
okay.
Yeah, so you would have to like stabilize the 8-track. Okay. Second thing is, I used to hang out with Dave when he was in Metallica.
Wow. Okay. Oh, God, you're like going way back. Yeah.
He is one of my favorite guitarists ever. And now going back to his singing, I have inside information about his singing. Okay.
Okay, let's hear it.
So when he got kicked out of Alcoholica, imagine this. Okay. We used to call Metallica Alcoholica. How much of an alcoholic are you when you get kicked out of Alcoholica for alcohol, which is what happened. He got kicked out because he was too much of a drunk. You know, and they were all serious drunk. So if you're too much of a drunk for Alcoholica, there's a problem.
Yeah.
So one of my great friends is Dan Spitz, former guitarist and founder of Anthrax.
He does Rolexes now.
Yeah,
right?
Well, he's always been a watchmaker.
I read about
He's like one of the most well-known matchmakers in the world.
Yeah.
So he told me one day, a few years ago, he was like, yeah, Dave didn't want to sing.
Same
you know, when he was forced to do Megadeth, and he confided, he was like, I don't know how to sing.
Same as me.
And so he came up with this style of talking. And in their conversation, it was basically, well, just talk it.
Gives me a migraine headache, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's basically... That's how Dave learned to sing, was just basically talking the lyrics instead of singing.
I had to step up. When we put our band together. I'm sorry to interrupt. Sorry.
No, it's good.
And I was in another band, and then there was like a 70s rock band and kind of stuff. And then I wanted to put my own band. I love Mastodon, by the way. We're like the Wish version of Mastodon. So if you can't afford Mastodon, just hire us, right? You're like, we've got Mastodon at home. Why are you buying Mastodon? And I've got a couple of tattoos of like early Mastodon work. Not the best, but anyway.
Nice.
And I personally, and our band's working more too, I really like the fact, like, the drummer's the main singer now. And at any point, what I love about Mastodon is that, they're four very different people. I mean, Brent Hines is a massive influence. The whole banjo thing, I've picked up the banjo because of it, because he just, individually, it shouldn't work. And I remember I had to start singing to go back to the Megadeth thing. And originally the idea was that, because I prefer playing guitar and I like beer, was like, we'll get a bass player come in, Thin Lizzy, Mastodon thing. Originally, he was more the singer, the Mastodon bass. And, then I'll do that. And then
Slayer, Tom Araya.
Right? Like, and I just thought, well, that would work because, especially when you want to get more complicated to a degree, that even though those bass players are playing very complicated music and singing, which, I just thought, and then it didn't work and we couldn't get somebody. And so I remember sort of thinking, well, I also love Chris Holmes from Wasp. I've met him a few times.
Used to hang out with him at the mall.
I have to say,
we were great friends.
He is one of the nicest guys.
He's a great guy. He had his own issues and he got screwed over too.
But he put his own band together, and I was like, you know what? I'm tired of playing second fiddle. I don't, and I've got this idea of what I want to do lyrically. And no offense, I'll say this now. I hate singing. I'm a terrible singer. I'm somewhere between Blackie Lawrence, Motorhead, and a Breezer Block. I'm not a good singer. But I realized that I wanted to sing about Cyclops, like the old Sinbad movies.
Oh, I love Sinbad.
All the Ray Harryhausen. And I was like, I want to sing about that. And I want to sing, like, we got a song called Cyclops, and it's all about, Sabretooth. And, I did the Iron Maiden thing, like the first part of the songs from the point of view of the Sabretooth, and the next point of view is from like the cavemen, and the chorus kind of, very, I was only watching it last night, the making of the Number of the Beast, and, it's all that kind of stuff. And then I wanted to obviously do the Jaws song, the Circled by Sharks song. And I realized that if I brought a singer in, I'd have to, again, I wouldn't have that control.
Yeah.
And I said, well, okay, I'm not the best singer, but also, like, again, I didn't want to be a five-piece. I having played in another band, which, was a really good band, by the way, it was always about being logistically as simple as possible, being able to, my band has done it, and the band I was in before, which is where I learned it from, was always about, you could turn up with bare minimum gear. They'd say, do you need a sound check, or you don't have time? You'd plug in, you'd play, and you would, and that's one thing I think what got us to Bloodstock, was that we can. And it's not about DIY, but a lot of metal bands are very complicated with their equipment, and being able to just sometimes turn up with like a guitar. I mean, I've had pedal boards die, so I've just sometimes gone guitar straight into the amp, right? Like Victory amps is what I use, and into a cab, and then still be able to perform. Some people are like, no, I couldn't do that. And I'm like, I've learned that from playing pubs, playing basically toilets.
That's what I always loved about thrash, because I'm a total thrash metalhead, is basically they could just show up and play it. There was nothing fancy. It was just play fast and heavy.
And I think the punk element, that's what they took from it, right?
Yeah,
thrash
totally.
Was like, we like classic music, like classical rock. We like punk. So we obviously want to craft very well good songs, and we want solos, but we obviously don't want like a 7-8 minute Yes solo. Yeah, with a
right.
We want to go up there in our shorts or whatever. I mean, I've seen Anthrax like 5 times, and they've always delivered. Like that's one thing I love about Anthrax.
I saw Anthrax with the original singer.
Wow. Oh God.
Neil Fallon.
Wow.
Neil Fallon.
You've been on the scene, haven't you?
I went to Slayer's first show ever. I went to Metallica's first show ever. That's where I met Dave. Okay, he came out. after the gig, because back in LA in those days, that's what happened. The band would come out, you'd hang out with them, and it was a whole scene. And he came out to me, and I wish I had this today. I've told this in multiple interviews when it comes up. He handed me his business card.
Nice.
And it said Metallica, power metal. There was no such thing as thrash yet.
Yeah.
Dave Mustaine. Could you imagine if I had that card today?
I got something here. I'll send you one. This is our business card.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
And AC/DC did this, right, where they play Money. And I got a little funny story about our business card. So our guitar player, sorry to interrupt, by the way. You just said business card, and I was like,
go for it.
Our guitar player was, we were coming back from a show, I don't know, 3 hours drive. They stopped off in another car, and he had a bunch of them business cards in your pocket. You know, you meet people, you say, hey, here's a business card. And the thing is, like, if you give someone a business card, they'll just throw it away. Yeah. Right? Because I don't want to be sold anything in card form. You give something that looks like money, and again, if you're an American band, make it look like a pound. By the way, I would not go through customs with this because they would not enjoy that, right? Imagine trying to explain that this isn't real money. This is a business, because it's got like our email and everything on it anyway.
Oh, well, people in the States at networking means, business people, they will, you know, like we have these cocktail mixers for business meetings, and people will have those kind of cards. Yeah. Put them on the bar, and everybody picks them up.
Really? So over here, people don't want them.
Oh, people think it's money.
Yeah.
We're capitalists. We're going to see money on the bar. We're going to go pick it up.
And you know what? Like, my mate dropped. Like, he went to reach it. It was like some oil station, like petrol station, and he dropped a few on the floor, right? And he probably looked on the floor and he didn't know. Didn't matter. The bass player looks behind, right, as they're leaving the shop, and sees a guy see it on the floor, watching them leave, and just puts it in his pocket, right? So I'm like, well, that means it works. Now, he's probably going to try and use that and then realize, like, or he's going to, like, can you imagine trying to pay for something and being done for having, like, fraudulent money? But the point is...
The funny thing is, if you were an American and came over there and did that, you probably would think it's real money, because most Americans, like, they see all this other money and it all looks like Monopoly money.
Designed it to be, you can't really see on the camera, but he basically designed this. So unless you really look at it, like really read it, at a glance, it's based on the... Again, if I did this in pounds, by the way, we would get in a heap of trouble. I got a story for you. I've told this one before. So our band has like a mascot. We love Iron Miden. So we've got like a wizard mascot, which is like a Halloween mask with a cape. And like we throw the sharks in the crowd, and we throw money in the crowd. And, you know, everyone shoves them down their top and pants and whatever. So this has happened to me and the bass player, who was the drummer at the time. He moved on to bass. We got a duffel bag of about like 1,000 of these dollar bills that aren't real. We got like a Cyclops Halloween mask, an Ironmonger, which is our mascot. He's got like a beard. It's the whole Iron Maiden rip-off thing. And then we had I'd bought a creature from the Black Lagoon mask. Plus, we've got like, you know, all the other, like, you know, like bits of rope to keep all the stuff up for the right. So we're figuring that if we get pulled over by the police, and they say, oh, by the way, before we open your car up, is there anything you need to like tell us? It's like, we have $1,000 in fake money, free Halloween masks, gloves, and some rope, right? Oh, but it's okay. We're in a band. And
it's okay. We're in a band. It's okay.
We're in a band, right? You know, and we're not looking like the most savory of characters, right? So we're thinking, like, if we get pulled over, like, no policeman's going to... Either they're going to say, you're too crazy that it's true, or that's made up. We're taking you in, you know, into the big time. So, you know, this is the kind of crazy stuff you don't think of. Obviously, you just think, oh, it's a bunch of fake money, and then you get pulled over because you've got a bunch of fake money, you know?
I love it.
Yeah.
But it's so funny. Americans would probably think it's real. Because
That
we
is
look
so
at other money around the world and it looks like fake money to us.
Yeah, but that is designed, obviously, like over here, we wouldn't do that with like pounds.
No.
We had to choose something because originally we joked about it being pounds and we were like, no, we could really get in trouble. Really get in trouble, right? Because then someone's going to try and use it and then it's going to come back to us.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you've tried to make something which looks like legal tender in your country, you're going to get in trouble. So we chose dollars, right? Because we thought that was the safest. But we realized if we ever get the chance to play out in the States, it'll have to be some Mickey Mouse Disney money or something. I don't
think it would be as a big deal here because we do that stuff all the time. We have actually, you can get at the Magic Store a thing that sticks to your dollar bills. And people go like into crowds at a festival or whatever and put it on the ground. It's attached to a string.
Oh, yeah. And then you pull up. Yeah.
And then you push the button.
Yeah. I've seen that done at festivals. You know, at festivals, they do a reward scheme. I went to Download back many years ago, and they reward you for picking up all the cups, right?
Oh, yeah. No, I've seen that because I do Download every year.
And there was a guy, this was on the last day, everyone's really drunk, where his friend would put the wire down his trousers, his pants, and then his other friend would put like grass over the wire. And then and we're talking like a good, 5 foot away or 6 foot away, and they would watch people try to pick up and then he would yank it, I was probably like 22 at the time, but yeah, that's what kind of stuff happens, right? And he's got and this guy's got the big stack of them, so he just kind of falls over.
That's funny.
Yeah, pretty crazy stuff.
I love it. Well, you guys are going to kill it at Bloodstock. I'm so bummed I'm not going to be there, but
we'll see anyway.
we'll see you somewhere else. And at least me, but everybody else that's listening and watching, if you are not at and you don't have your ticket to Bloodstock yet, you need to go to Bloodstock. It's one of my favorite festivals in the whole world to do. It's such a great festival. A couple of years ago, we were talking about Machine Head. A couple of years ago, they had the surprise band. I love that. They had the surprise band. It was Machine Head was the surprise band in the tent. Machine Head played in the tent as can you imagine Machine Head playing in a tent?
My wife saw that. She was there.
Oh, It was insane. Just such a family atmosphere, meaning the whole metal family. Great music, a real metal festival in the UK.
It's more aimed at grassroots, because of not to toot our own horn, but we got there through a competition. And all the different counties that make up England, they really support that,
Well, that's what I love, too, is that this metal to the masses thing, I think is amazing because it gets bands like you and other bands I've talked to playing a festival. And that just says a lot, too. It's like the people that run the festival, they care about music, they care about the local scene, and they care about Sophie Lancaster. So that's
totally. But you know what? Even the bands that don't win, when we did ours, we did a lot of radio, and we said, look, you've got to look at it like this. And bear in mind, we did it the year before, and we got close, and they said, look, go away, do this. So we went away and then played, we went from playing 7 gigs to like 30 plus gigs, and then we did almost 30 gigs this year. They said, you need to work on your social media. I mean, if you're a band and you're serious and you're driven, and you do Metal to the Masses and you don't get through the first time, you can either sulk, or you can take the advice that they're giving you, and they're giving it as like an honest thing. We did everything. They said, go and play everywhere. Work on your stage act. Make sure, our social media was awful. By the time we went back to doing it, we had great social media. We worked with radio. We in a year, and not just that. If you think about like Olympics, right? How many people compete for those 4 spots for running? But out of those 20 people, that doesn't mean the other 16 are bad. So even if you don't win, if you have to say to yourself, but why I'm competing, I'm still getting offers and I'm still being in that promotion. Yeah. And if you want it, you'll come back the next year and then you'll go, right, we're going to hit the social media half. we've gone away and written some more songs that we think would be better for our area crowd, because every area is different.
Yeah.
And the bands that get through usually are the bands that have played it the first time, watched and listened to what's going on. But at the same time, your band's still getting all the social media. You get to use Bloodstock, even if you only get through the first time. You still are a part of the Bloodstock process.
That's so amazing. And you're the fourth band I've interviewed so far this year. This year that played Metal to the Masses multiple times. One band, they this was their fourth time playing Metal to the Masses, and they got through.
Yeah.
You know, and I have so much respect for that, because I'm all about persist until you succeed. Yeah. You know, if you that's what music's all about anyway. Like, listen, there's no overnight success. Overnight success takes like 20 years. Yeah. You know, Metallica slept on a floor for 10 years and ate bologna sandwiches with no bread. Like, you have to have that kind of dedication to make it in music.
Have to believe. By the way, I have to tell this story. I met Green Lung about 4 or 5 years ago on the Woodland Rights. If you don't know Green Lung, I'm playing 12 till 12:30 and they're playing at 12:45. I met them on their Woodland Rights tour in Southend Underworld, which is a very good venue in London. And they were opening for Puppy, if that means anything to anyone. And they're like the second coming of Black Sabbath. And I don't joke about Black Sabbath, by the way. So you have to check this band out. And they obviously started off trying to be a stoner band, and then they realized it's been done. And then they started doing about English mythology and all the Hammer horror movies, which is what I call tattoos, right? You know, I've got like Creature from the Black. Anyway, I got to talk to them, and I really must say this for people who are musicians. And I'd been drinking. But anyway, they let me speak to him for 45 minutes, right? And the point being is that they said to me, they gave me like the 10 commandments. They said, you need to invest in your artwork, right? And we all love Iron Miden. A lot of bands will spend about £20 on artwork on some, just pay the artist what they're worth, yeah? Most of the bands that we like, their artwork is, and actually it's not that much. I mean, we've got some tremendous artwork coming out, and he's from America. He's like a skater guy. He's done some stuff for Clutch as well, actually. And, you know, he's only $114, right? Nothing. They said, when you get your artwork, then market it. They said some other stuff. One of the things that really, they said, you need to make your band every. So, like, you know, when it's International Women's Day, Green Lung will say it's Witches, you know, it's Witches Day. You have to make yourself relevant. And I don't want to go back to the Kiss thing and Ghost, but a lot of people getting into music now probably was the same when you were hearing like Metallica and that. You were like, I'm invested in these guys, right? Yeah. I'm investing. Right. And I accept that they're not going to always make every song. The best piece of advice they ever gave me, and I'm really going to big up Green Lung, because our band is now playing the same festival 15 minutes before they go on, be it not on the main stage. They said, what you got to do, Ross, is that you got to make sure if you're going to get a band of amigos together, you guys have to believe in what you're doing. And this is when they started the pagan thing, because their first EP wasn't about that. And then they'd obviously, right, okay, we've got a voice. I don't want to use a unique selling point, but not a gimmick, but this is what you are. And again, like you look at Mastodon's first album, and it's like really weird now to think they did that, but they obviously persevered. And again, all these bands. And Green Lung basically said, you have to be invested, and you have to believe in yourself and accept that it's not always going to connect. But it will. If you go out there, you will find your crowd. Yeah. And if that means you've got to go play, our band drove on a Wednesday night. We finished work at 5:30, drove 2.5 hours north of London to a place called Northamptonshire, which is about an hour out from Birmingham, which is birthplace of Black Sabbath. Bloodstock's next to it, which is about 3 hours away. We played this biker bar to no one. Everyone was lovely behind the bar. They loved, you know, everyone was friendly. Played to no one in this pub, and then drove 2.5 hours back. I got home at midnight, and on Thursday I was back at work at 8 o'clock in the morning.
There it is.
But that was what Green Lung had said to me. You got to do it. It's not about
true.
It's not about then going home and going, oh, but we played to no one. Okay, we didn't, but that's still one more getting us closer to playing 30 gigs a year, right? Which I think is pretty good. My minimum gigs a year is 12 times a year. That's once a month. Any less than that, I won't be in a band, right?
Yeah.
And as you get bigger as a band, if you play less venues,
you do have to have that dedication, because like I played drums and then I played guitar. Funny enough, first song I ever learned on guitar was Heaven and Hell.
Can't go wrong.
They wanted to teach me Smoke on the Water like they teach everybody. I'm like, no,
Yeah.
I want to learn Heaven and Hell.
Mm-hmm.
And but I, as much as I have a huge passion for music, I probably didn't have the enough of a passion to play music, because I never really got good. I sucked at drums. I sucked at guitar. I sang thrash metal for a while. Sucked at that too. And
I'm sucking, dude. I'm not that good.
yeah, it's all about practice too. Like Randy Rhoads practiced 8 hours every single day.
Is that true that while he was on tour, he would go and find lessons and end up teaching them instead of that's the story I heard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But then he was dedicated to his art.
Yeah, and look at Mustaine. Mustaine, like, not only is he a great guitarist, but he studied like jazz guitar and stuff. That's why his music's so different and so complicated for metal.
One of the things that we try to do with Danny's the other guitar player, and he's phenomenal, much better than me. I've known him since he was 16, actually. He taught me how to play guitar.
Nice.
One of the things we try to do is say, okay, for the guitar players out there, by the way, we try to say, let's write a song without using power chords, but let's make it as heavy as possible. So you really are outside your comfort zone, right?
Yeah.
But it makes you approach, which is like, if you look at a lot of like Megadeth, like Lucretia, Hangar 18, In My Darkest Hour, there's some stuff off the Peace Cells. Peace Cells has got lots of jazz influence.
100%.
Can't remember the guitar player's name.
And how about on Killing Is My Business? It's like so much jazz influence on that whole album.
The amount of power chords isn't that much. If you look at tablature, and we just said, let's try and write. But then when you add a power chord in, it really hits, right? Where a lot of metal
reinforces it.
Right? Where a lot of metal is just power chord, power chord, power chord. I'm not having a go, guys. I'm doing the same as everyone else. But you say, let's write a song with no power chords, and it sound heavy. And you eventually do need to throw power chords in, but you then start doing like inverted power chord. I'm not a theory person, so I apologize to anyone listening. But it makes you then write differently. And that, I know I'm not a jazz fan. That is an influence from someone who listening to metal who was influenced by jazz. And by the way, big Testament fan, Alex Skolnick. You had the singer on your show.
Yeah, just recently. Right?
That blew my mind. I didn't realize how big a deal this radio show was. And then Wayne said, "Oh, he sent me a snapshot," and I went, "That's the singer from Testament," which, for some people doesn't mean anything. And I was like, yeah, that means a lot to me. I was like, oh, this is, this radio is podcast radio, what you want to call it. I was like,
solve it.
I was like, oh, this is the real deal.
Yeah.
This is just like a radio from around the corner.
Right.
Massive respect, by the way.
Well, thanks a lot. I appreciate it. If you go through, I have like over 3,000 music interviews. I have professional interviews too, but 3,000 music. I've done almost everybody I've ever wanted to interview. I've interviewed.
And you know what? Respect to you that you'll do not only someone who's in a massively named band, but you're willing to put the time in and speak to bands that are.
That's the way I am.
Nobody's really,
That, and you know what? Here's my philosophy on that, because that's the way I am. Like, I do all these festivals, and a lot of the other press people, they love to cherry pick. And then they end up with like 1 or 2 interviews, if that. Me, now in the States, it's different in the UK and Europe, but in the States, they get the person running media sends you an Excel spreadsheet with every contact for every band playing at the festival.
Yeah.
Most of the other media people pick all the famous people, and that's who they'll email. I email everybody on the whole list. I don't
The
care who it is.
underdogs as well, right? Like,
I don't care who it is. I don't cherry pick. And because of that, a couple things happens. One, I'm respected by the festivals by doing that, you know. Secondly, there's a lot of interviews because I won't end up with 2 or 3. I'll end up with between 20 and 50.
Yeah.
And second of all, these other media people don't know how the game should be played. Two things. One is those bands you don't want to interview, they could be the next Black Sabbath. You never know.
Green Lung.
Okay. And I have bands right now that I interviewed them from the beginning, and they're friends of mine now. And anytime I want an interview, I don't even ask. They'd come up to me at the meeting. Hey, are we going to talk again? You know, who'd I get real friendly with? And every time he comes into press tent, he's like, hey, Pipe Man. He's the only one that ever interviewed my door. Jelly Roll. When he wasn't even famous yet. That long ago. Wasn't that long ago. He wasn't even famous yet. Nobody really knew who he was. And now look at him. He's like the biggest thing ever, you know, metal or not, it doesn't matter. And he crosses every genre, which is what's so cool about him.
Have you interviewed Jared James Nichols yet?
No.
I know he's more bluesy, but he's a really nice guy. I actually met him. He's a really cool guy.
And I have interviewed some bluesy people like Larkin Poe, who's big now. I interviewed them when nobody heard of them. And, you know, so the other media people that are acting like groupies or fangirling or fanboying out, that's what they're missing right there. Yeah. The other thing they're missing is when you're approaching record labels, PR people, publicists, like now I have a reputation, so they come to me. Yeah. But basically, you got to do them favors first. Yeah. So you don't go to them and say, hey, I want to interview Rob Zombie. You say, hey, who do you need me to interview? Who needs the promotion? Yeah. That's the key. My job, the way I look at it, is my job is to promote bands. Yeah. And that means the younger bands need it a lot more. Like Slayer doesn't need promotion. Yeah, I agree with that. So my job is to promote those younger bands so that they could get to that level. That's the way I look at my job. No, I agree. We've got a guy called Gary Bowers, by the way, and he's the guy, by the way, in our local area. If you are a band playing on a Wednesday night and no one knows who you are, he's the guy there. Gets you photos and videos. And I know him. I think I'm good friends with him. He's the one that does that magazine. Yeah, he did an article on us. Yeah. So I've done. He introduced me to Electric Callboy because I was doing Download one or Bloodstock one year, one of the twos. I think it was. I can't remember which one it was, and he's like, come with me. We're going to go to a gig. And they weren't really heard of over in the States yet. Yeah, not massively over here either. Yeah. Yeah, and he mentioned name. I'm like, all right, I don't know who they are, but I'll go. I don't care. It was one of the best live sets I've ever freaking seen. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. But he's the coolest dude, man. Yeah. And so down to earth. So it's good to hear it from the artist's point of view too. Like, you know, when you're a band and you've got nothing, and look, we've lost a lot of venues and a lot of promoters aren't promoting like it was 6-7 years ago. I mean, I used to be able to ring up someone and say, oh, we can get you a gig. And a lot of those, again, because those promoters have got older and handed it off, and venues are struggling, like pubs and stuff. So having that person that's going to watch, like you're a new band, by the way, you're like a young band, or even me, like if I travel like 3 hours up to nowhere, they don't know who I am. No. And that having those people like yourself who will get you some photos and camera and say, look, and you played to no one. You did, it's the Lemmy thing where you played to the blind guy and the only person that could see you was the dog. We've all done it. The guitar player from These Wicked Rivers, he told me the same. I'm good friends with Aaron, if you know who Wicked Rivers are. They're like a rock band. But you have to do that. But it's those men and women that will take photos and say, by the way, and you've played to no one, right? It's cost you like 60, 70 quid in fuel. Yeah. And but you do a good set. And then you go home, and the next night or next morning you wake up and on Facebook or Instagram,
you see the pictures of you playing, and there's some maybe recordings of you playing, yeah? And that gives your band that social little boost to say, hey, we played here. And then you know, people go, oh, I didn't realize you drove 3 hours and then back. That's the people when you're a young band that really helps.
Yeah.
Right?
No
Rather than
doubt.
just going online, and I'm not saying you should go online and do all your stuff, but those people are the real heroes for up and coming bands.
Yeah. And you got to do these favors for the record labels, the PR, and the publicists too, because you got to help them out. So what has happened over the years is, like, I even give some of the publicists and record labels and PR people my link to schedule interviews, the same one that you use. And it's like, they'll approach me. I'm like, here's the link, or somebody I deal with. I'm like, book whoever you want, like whenever you want. Like, I don't even ask who the name of the band is. I don't care. And it's those people, because of what I do, that they'll call me up or text me or email me and like, hey, would you like to interview Cheap Trick? Hey, would you like to interview Rob Zombie? Because I did them the favor first. The problem these other media people have to learn is, like, you can't go for the freaking elephant. Yeah. Go for all the peanuts. You'll get the elephant once you have all the peanuts.
Well, everyone in the industry, it's not just bands. Everyone thinks it's about bands. It's about people who do the photos, the music videos, the studios. Like, you're all working your way up, and you know, we're doing our album at the moment, and the guy who's doing it's really into LA. He's like, dude, I love it. It's like, you know, you've got heavy metal, and then the other week, even though I was recovering from a hernia, I went in and did all the acoustic guitar parts, right? And he was like, I can't remember the last time I did a band that did metal, but it's that 70s influence of like, but we're going to add some acoustic guitars and maybe put them under this bit. And, you know, and he was like, man, I'm loving it. But like, he's in his own pool of people, like you are in the media. Like, you're all in your own little circles, right? And then you get into the next phase. And as great as it's like we're playing Bloodstock, but then you're, again, a little fish in another big pond, right? You're just always the little fish trying to be slightly bigger. You can maybe eat the other fish underneath you, but there's always a bigger fish. There's always a bigger shark, right? Like, looking around the corner, right? You know. So, you know, I get it. I totally get it.
We're all in it together. We should all rise together. We should all help each other. And I think the whole world could learn from the metal community, because the whole world is jacked up right now, attacking each other, divided. And the only place I've seen in the past several years where people are united and nobody's an outsider is in the metal community. And that's because we all work together instead of working against each other.
I think also, like, for me, again, I could sit there and tell you about, you know, I religiously studied in these guitar magazines about things that, you know, I couldn't just like learn, you know, again, even like an Iron Maiden song, I'd have to be like Quest for Fire and then realize there's a book, which they then did a film. And again, for me, I'm not saying every heavy metal alternative person is like that, but for me, it wasn't just enough to, you know, I'm dedicated and I love it. And it's almost like, you know, the amount, like I was listening to, you know, the Iron Maiden making of documentary, and then there's the Sabbath one, and I probably watched these things like 50 times, right?
Well, metalheads are totally like that too. Like, we get so passionate about it. When somebody says to me, I used to listen to metal, I'm like, then you weren't a metalhead.
Yeah.
There is no used to.
But, you know, I'm not massively into sport, so I get it. Like, if someone's into their football team and they, you know, and again, they'll watch their football team do badly, do well. And I think if you're passionate about a band, this happened more in the early 70s. You know, Deep Purple could bring out an album like Storm Rider. It wasn't a bad Storm Rider, I think, Stormbringer. But it was okay because, you know, they'd say, well, okay, but Deep Purple's my band. I'll give, even Black Sabbath brought some albums out at the time that I guess, I mean, there's been I'm loving the Tony Martin stuff. And luckily, he's had that recently in the last 3 months. He's had this huge. Everyone's come out and said, "Oh, we love Tony Martin here. Shame it's happened to him so late in his career." But there were the people that must have gone to that Sabbath and said, "It doesn't matter. Sabbath is my team. Yeah, I root for Sabbath. So if they bring out a bad album, well, they're still going to go out and play Heaven and Hell, and they're still going to go out and play paranoid. And I think,
100%.
although I'm not massively into sports, and again, in England, sometimes it can be fanatical, you could argue that some people might say the same about me. They're like, well, you know, you walk around, you got these tattoos and this, and you love this band so much you went to do that, yet they're wearing a football T-shirt. It's the same thing. It's that, you know, and I can tell people, well, in this year, Tony Iommi did this, right? But I talk to someone down the pub and they're talking about their favorite team, and they can tell me in 1978, when they weren't even born, what that footballer was doing and how many, you know, whatever. It's like the batting score thing, you know, and we're not really that different. We just like different, you know, I like my music, they like the sport.
It's just what your passion goes towards, and it shows in your music. So but everybody's got to check you out, not only at Bloodstock, but in general. Tell everybody how they can connect to you guys on socials, on the web, how they can buy your merch, how they can check out your shows,
so
all that stuff.
We're bringing out, the album is, I've just got to do the vocals, so the album is coming out. At the moment, we've got a couple of demos out if you want to go listen to them. When you hear the album, it's coming out on vinyl. It will be pre-order. It's going to be amazing. It's, again, we're like Mastodon from Wish. So if you like Mastodon, which is poor man's version, we're going to be doing all the new, we've got some new artwork. You're all going to love it when it comes out. It's all pre-order. You can obviously listen to us on all the YouTubes. And if you want to listen to us, go on YouTube, because we've been playing so much live, that if you want to hear Circled by Sharks or Cyclops or Sabretooth, watch us on YouTube. I know that sounds silly. We've got a few demos that you can listen to, great. But if you want to hear what we sound like, go listen to that, right? Give us a couple of months. We'll get this album out. Then you can really hear what we sound like.
Nice.
Right? And that's a bit old school. Most people would bring all their music out on the internet and then tour. We decided, no. Let's play these songs for like 2 years. So what you're hearing has been played. I mean, Circle by Sharks has probably been played 70, 80 times to people, maybe more. And then we're obviously rehearsed in all the various. So we're a live band and we're really proud of that. And I really feel if you go on YouTube and you watch us, you're going to get a better idea than the demos. Then just like take a little break from us. Promise me that you guys come back, you men and women out there, come back end of the year when the album drops. And then you'll go, yes. You probably wouldn't hear that from many bands, but go do that. Trust me, you won't be disappointed.
I love it. I love that you're playing at Bloodstock. And
thank you. We're loving it. We're excited.
And you might have set a record of like probably my second or third longest interview ever.
Wow. I can talk, though. That's my fault.
We both can. So that was the problem. I have somebody in Germany that I was supposed to call after my interview with you. So she was expecting my call, I think, like an hour and 15 minutes.
Sorry. My fault.
No worry. I met her at Grass Pop.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So it's kind of like the same thing with Wayne, because Wayne met Lori at Shiprocked. You know, so
a weird circle of people, right?
People, you must go to festivals. That's where you meet lots of friends, lots of people. You can meet your next future significant other, whatever. But most importantly, if you go to Bloodstock, you can go see Reverent Son, and you will be in for the show of your life. So thank you, and thanks for being on the Adventures of Pipeman.
No, thank you very much. I'd love to come back on the show after the album. I'd love to drop you the album maybe ahead of time when it's out so you can play or whatever.
Absolutely. You could drop me all the MP3s. I'll put it in the rotation.
And a couple of dollars as well, right? Yeah.
It'll cost me $1. I'm the one that has to pay the royalties. You'll make like 10 cents.
Maybe I can get my teeth fixed.
I know, right? And like nowadays, it's like, okay, I'll put you in the rotation and you'll make your 2 cents.
I think it came up on our PayPal, from Spotify, and it was like we made £1.68 this year.
Nice. It is so funny. I do get excited with some of those. It's like such a little amount of money. I'm like, oh, but it's cool that I made that.
It cost me £40 in inflatable sharks, but that £1.68 made it all much better, right?
There it is. That made it happen. Well, you guys kick ass at Bloodstock, and
thank you very much.
I will see you live sometime soon.
Yeah, and we'll catch up in a couple of months if you want when the album's out.
Absolutely, 100%.
Perfect.
Let's do it. Everybody,
Thank you.
make sure to listen to them. Go to Bloodstock if you're going. Go to their set. If not, check it out. Get their album. Check out their YouTubes. You're gonna love it. Thanks for listening, and thank you again, Ross, for being here.
Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the Adventures of Pipeman on W4CY Radio.